So review day, warm up. Where did I get these questions from? STAR. These are last year's STAR questions. So you can see that the second one is one of those new version questions because it was like a drag and drop. But we can still practice with it. Okay, so here's our first story. A construction worker built steps up to a home. The table shows the linear relationship between the height off the ground in inches and the number of steps. So they gave you a table. Did they label it X or Y? No, but what do you guys know is going to be the number of steps? The left-hand side. That's your X's, and this is your Y's. Okay, so that's typically how our tables are set up. If they're vertical like that, if they're horizontal, our X's are on the top and then our Y's. And so we want to find the rate of change, which, what do we know the rate of change is? So what are we going to? Pink sheet. There's our slope formula. We need our 2 points. We're going to label them, correct? Because that's helpful. What 2 points did y'all use? First two, so x1, y1, and then x2, y2. So with me? Very good. Okay. And then we follow the formula, you guys. How I'm going to grade your test. You have to show your plugged in formula on your paper, or else I am going to take points off even if you get the right answer. Do you understand what I'm saying? I'm checking for the plug-in to the formula, and then I'm checking for the answer. It's a 2-part deal. So do not skip. Do not be lazy. You need to write before you type. So here we go. M equals. What did we label as our Y2? 35. Does it matter? Does it have to be the first 2 points? No, you pick whatever 2 points you want to. I would try to pick positives if you have a choice, which all these were positives, so that's fine. 35 minus, remember that formula calls for minus. You have to have that minus sign there. What's our Y1? 21 over X2 minus X1, 3. I've got to see this. And then you can put it in alpha Y equals. Make sure you are typing the signs correctly. Minuses where they belong. No negatives here. But you will see that, so you definitely are going to want to practice that. It's on the review with the negatives. And make sure you're still getting the same numbers. And so our rate of change is 7. And so I would choose this one. Now, it did kind of relate it to the story because we're talking about height in inches per step. So you see how they kind of put that, like this is what it means. They're increasing, because it's positive, 7 inches per step. Remember, per is one of those words that tells you you're talking about slope. Okay, it's the rate, y per x. And so that's where that comes from there. Okay, next one. The water level of the tank is changing at a constant rate. The graph shows the relationship between the time in hours. So this is talking about time. And the water level in meters. This is talking about M. Okay, so with these stories, it's important to kind of know what Y stands for and what X stands for. Complete the statement that describes the rate of change. There it is again. Rate of change is slope. Okay, of the water level with respect to time. So this is one that it was either a drop down or it was like a drag and drop. Okay, so it was, first one was the water level. Look at the graph. Is it decreasing or is it increasing? Decreasing. How do you know? It's going down. So we would say decreases. Or you would drag that, or some of y'all drew arrows, that's fine too. At a rate of, so now we actually need to calculate the slope to figure out what rate it's decreasing by. So how many points do you need to do slope? 2. And we need 2, we want to find perfect points. Nice, pretty, whole number points. What'd y'all use? 4, 8 is a good one. And you have to be able to pick that point off of the graph and write it as an ordered pair. I'm going to have you find slope of graphs, and I want you to do this. Okay, write it as an ordered pair. And then the other one you use, the y-intercept is usually a pretty good point to use in there. Okay, so here's the 2 points, but you've got to be able to get those points right. If those points are not right, nothing else is going to be right. And then we label x1, y1, x2, y2. This is the kind of work I want to see. Go to the formula. Pink sheet. This guy should be your best friend by now. M equals Y2, 9, minus Y1, 8, over X2, 0 minus x1, 4. When you put that in your calculator, what did it give you? Negative 1/4. Is 1/4 a drag and drop that you can put on there? Okay, I want to talk about this because it is 1000% okay to get slope as a fraction. You can even get intercepts as fractions. That happened on some people's Delta Math, and I'm going to do some examples before we start the test review to make sure I kind of review that with you. But it is okay. Fractions are numbers. Fractions are our friends. We are not afraid of fractions, okay? But sometimes on a question like this, on star or something, or if you're graphing, you might need to think of that as a decimal so that way you kind of know where it is. So, do y'all know how to convert a fraction to a decimal? Yeah. This is something that you need to know for your test. Do we know how to do that? Yeah. Okay, how do we do it if you do know?
You take the negative 1/4 and divide it. I think you divide the numerator by the denominator.
You do. So negative 1/4, if you want to go to a decimal, you just do negative 1 divided by 4. Just in your calculator. Like with the divided by, and it will give you that this is 0.25. Now, this is what Daniel and I were talking about. There is not a, when I look at my number choices, there's not a negative 0.25. There is a 0.25. But because I already filled in the blank that it was decreasing, that was telling me, hey, it's negative. But what is the actual rate? The rate is at, so now you're going to put your 0.25. And again, do y'all know what this says? That m/h? Meters per hour, because we're talking about meters. But yes, and again, there's that word per. Even though it's a slash, it's still a per, and so it's talking about your slope. So that's what you would click there. If the question just says, what's the slope, and it's like a fill in the blank, like for my test, negative 1/4 would be totally fine. But this one, I just wanted you to kind of see, these are some of the new question types that they put out last year, and so now we finally got our hands on them, and we can practice with them. Okay? Yeah.
Does it matter if you put 0.5, 0.25, or 2.5?
Oh, no. I probably should do that because that's what the actual one said. But 0.25, 0.25, those are both the same. Okay? So that was a review on slope. Okay, so let's talk about what we got going on. Today is Friday. The next time I see you guys is going to be when? Tuesday. And what is happening on Tuesday?
Test.
A test. And how many grades is your test? Do you know? 3. Final 3 grades. Okay, so you have an entire test on slope. You have to be, what?
Final 3 grades.
For the quarter. For the quarter, not forever. No, we got plenty more tests. But for quarter 1, these will be your final 3 grades. Just because we're not gonna have time to test in this quarter because there's only a couple weeks left. Okay, so you have an entire test grade on slope. Okay, you have to be able to, and you'll see it on your review. Slope of tables, which we did on the warm-up. Slope of graphs, which we did on the warm-up. Slopes of ordered pairs. Those special slopes between like horizontal and vertical lines. What's this slope? It's a horizontal line. What's the slope? 0. 0 fun. Remember? Slope, dude? 0 fun. 0 fun. You know what I'm talking about? Okay? And so horizontal lines are 0 slope. What about these types of lines?
Undefined.
Undefined. Okay, that's the bad math word. Undefined slopes. You need to know those. Okay? So that's on the test review as well. You have an entire test over intercepts. That's just finding intercepts. Here's a graph. What are the intercepts? Here's a table. What are the intercepts? Equations. We're going to review some of that before we start the test review because those are the tricky ones. Your intercepts I always want as ordered pairs, so we got to practice that as well. And then the last test grade is going to be kind of about the interpreting. Those are going to be your word problems, your stories. Both of these word problems were kind of stories here because you had to like bring it back to the situation. Meters per hour, inches per step. And then those Delta Math problems over 3.3 were really good too. Those graphs, and then it asked you to define what was there. So here's what we're going to do. I want you to get your Chromebooks out real quick. If you look at Canvas, we are going to do a check for understanding, but we're going to kind of do it in the middle of class. Okay? Go to current unit. I also want you to open up a tab for Delta Math. So open up the calendar, and then open up Delta Math. And I want you to look at your percentage on Delta Math. And if your percentage is not at 100% complete, which there are a handful of you that are not at 100% complete. Some of you guys missed one, and that's okay. But if you are not at 100% complete, you are doing this right now. You are Delta Mathing because this is required, and you haven't been doing your homework, and you don't get to do the scavenger hunt because you're behind. If you are at 100% on Delta Math, you're going to do the key feature scavenger hunt real quick. Okay? I'm going to only give a certain amount of time on this because I want us to have time for our test review. So we're going to do 20 minutes, scavenger hunt, and Delta Math. Let me get my timer set up. Delta Math is first priority. So look and see your percentage. If you ain't at 100, then you're working on Delta Math. And then scavenger hunt, if you finish, come show me and I'll let you start your test review. And then when my timer goes off, we're all going to take a check for understanding. And then we'll finish out the class working on the test review. Okay? Look at what else is on Canvas. I have a link to the CFU that we're going to do. I have a link to the scavenger hunt. If you don't scavenger hunt today, it's on Canvas. You can do it this weekend. I have a link to the test review. What does it say at the very bottom? Review key. So that means if you don't get your test review done, which you should because we've learned what is the most important assignment, the test review. And you better have it done by Tuesday. But you can check your work, or if you're stuck and you're working at home, you can check the key to see how to do a problem. All right? Do we know what we're doing? Yep. All right, the timer has started. Space. And write these two problems. Well, there's one problem right now. And then we're going to do another kind of bonus problem. And these are important. These are problems that take a little bit longer to do. They do take some algebra. There's a lot of work involved, or more work involved than like just finding from a graph, finding from a table, that type of thing, okay? All right, so let's go over some vocab. Find the zero. What is a zero? That's an x-intercept. So this is a two-part problem. I am doing two problems in one, okay? So one of those is an x-intercept. And then starting value. What's your starting value? That's the y-intercept. So if I word it that way on the test, you have to know what I'm asking for, okay? All of those vocab words are fair game. You got to know a zero is an x-intercept. You got to know a starting value is a y-intercept. Okay, so that's what we're finding here. What do we know about x-intercepts? When do they happen?
When the y is 0.
When the y is 0. So we're going to take our equation and we're going to sub in a 0 for the y. This is what I want to see. Write this down. This is what I want to see on your test. I promise you're going to have a test question like this. Okay? So rewrite the equation. Negative 3x minus 4. Stop typing. I want you writing. 4 times, what are we putting in for y? 0 equals 9. You get a point for doing this. Okay? I have to see that you know that. And here's kind of a way to remember it. What am I solving for? What am I looking for? Do you see how I wrote that at the top? Like, this is what I'm solving for. What variable stays in my equation? X. That kind of helps you know where the 0 goes if you are silly and forget. Okay? So structure it like this. It's two separate problems. Okay? That's going to knock out, which is great. It makes life easier. Negative 3x equals positive 9. Divide by negative 3. Do not lose the signs. And so what does x equal? Negative 3. And what is the x-intercept? Negative 3, comma. Why did you say 7? Okay, don't say silly numbers. It's review day. I can't take it. Okay? So negative 3, 0 is your x-intercept. Okay? All right, the y-intercept. What do you know about y-intercepts? You take out the x. You want to keep the y in your equation. So we have negative 3, put the 0 here, minus 4y equals 9. Bye-bye. Don't lose that minus sign. That minus sign is telling you that the 4 is what kind of number? Negative. So what are you actually going to divide by? Negative 4. Okay? Does 9 divide evenly by negative 4?
No.
No. 9 divided by, 9 over negative 4 is just negative 9 over 4. As an ordered pair, what's your y-intercept? Ordered pair. 0, comma, negative 9 over 4. Okay, I'm also going to ask you to...
Do you accept the decimal form for that?
I would accept decimal form for that, yes. If it's not...
Pictures of you teaching?
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Okay.
Make sure it looks good.
It is a subtraction sign, but here's what happens. When this zeroes out, it now acts as a negative. Like it has to say, because you are subtracting the 4 from it. So when you have a 0 in front of that, then you have to, like that negative is kind of like its name tag. So it is a negative. Okay? Okay, how do we graph this? How do we graph this? Can we graph the x-intercept? Negative 3, 0. Where do I go from 0, 0?
Thank you, sorry.
Which way?
Left.
Left 3. 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to put a point right there. You're going to have to do this on your test, people. Okay? Sorry, I know that was a distraction. You're going to have to do this on your test. Circle back in. Focus on me. Okay? So I can go put, this is a pretty point. Yay. We like pretty points, don't we? Okay? This is not. This is not a pretty point. Warning, warning, warning. You're going to have to know what to do if you get something that is not pretty. So I typically like fractions, but Braden asked, can we write this as a decimal? And if you're going to graph, then I would. Okay? So how do you graph? What is negative 9 over 4 as a decimal?
Negative 2.25.
How'd you get that?
Divided.
You divided. Negative 9 by 4. Do y'all see what I just did?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is really the point 0, negative 2.25. So you're just going to have to kind of eyeball it. You're going to have to do this on a test. I'm not going to be like, that looks like negative 2.26. Wrong. No. Do the best that you can. Where does negative 2.25 fall between?
3 and 2.
Negative 3 and negative 2. So here's my negative 2. Here's negative 3. I'm just going to go, I don't know, right there. Okay? So just do the best that you can. I'm telling you right now, you're going to have some fractions, and then you get your ruler, and you draw your line. You're going to have to do plotting points and drawing lines. It's on the review, but it's also on the test like that. Okay? And then give it arrows. There's your answer there. So are we going to, like, freak out if we get a fraction?
No.
And we know how to change it to a decimal?
What if it doesn't change to a decimal?
It should. If you do top divided by bottom, it should.
I just got a fraction. I didn't get it. I just got I got a decimal.
If you put it in as a negative 9 divided by 4, it will give you a decimal. Sometimes if you put it in as alpha y equals, it will reduce the fraction. Okay? Next problem.
Can I sharpen my pencil?
Yeah. Next problem.
Mr. Bernie, I have a question.
Yeah.
Why would you do negative 9 over divided by 4 instead of 9 divided by negative?
That's the same thing. Because it's just, as long as there's a negative with, it has to be either the top or the bottom, but it will give you the same thing. If you put, if you did 9 divided by negative 4, you'd still get negative 2.25. Okay, that's a good question. Okay, all right. What do I have to find here?
Slope. X into
Rate of change, which is
Slope.
slope. Okay? All right. Do we have 2 points here to find our slope? Okay, but this is actually easier than you think. And this is on your test, and this is on your test review. What form is this equation in? Y equals mx plus b. How do I know it's in that form? Because what's by itself? Y. Is this guy in y equals mx plus b? No, so we can't follow those rules here. So if it's in y equals mx plus b, what's the slope? See. What's the slope? Mx.
Plus B.
Well, which one is your m? Negative 4. Do you see how easy that was? No math. No math. You're going to have to do that. No math on that.
So your X is your slope?
The number next to x, if and only if it's in y equals. Okay? It's on the review. It's on the front of the review, but if you got to recognize it's slope intercept form. So yeah, I can just grab that number there. It's not the same on the problem above because that was not in slope intercept form. Okay? So slope is quick. What's the other thing that's quick if it's in slope-intercept form?
X-intercept.
Y-intercept. Which one of these is your y-intercept?
Ooh, 0 or 1.
Well, okay, so which word? Sorry. Which word in the instructions? Rate of change with slope. Is that a root? Is the y-intercept your root?
No.
Is the y-intercept your initial value?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So y-intercept, yes, that is the other easy one, and it's order pair. 0, comma 10. Okay?
You have to order pair.
Yes. I'm going to ask you to do that on the test. Yes, we have to order pair it. If you forget, how can you find that that's your y-intercept? What do we do up here when we found a y-intercept? You remove the x. So you put in a 0 right there, and then what does that say? Y equals 10. Okay? So those are our quick two, and those are pretty easy. The other one is not so easy. What's the other thing we're finding?
X-intercept.
The x-intercepts, which how did I word it up here? Root. All right. Watch here. What do we do? When do x-intercepts happen?
When the y is
And the y value is 0, so we take out the y. This has got more algebra than the other ones do. 0 equals negative 4x plus 10. What do we do?
Minus 10.
Minus 10. 0 minus 10 is
Maybe 10.
And then
Equals
you do
negative
10
4x.
divided by 4x.
divided by negative 4, just negative 4. And so x is equal to alpha y equals entered negative 10 over negative 4. Oops, not 3. Negative 4 gives me 5 over 2. Or if you did negative 10 divided by negative 4, what do you get as a decimal? 2.5. Okay? So either of those are fine. So your ordered pair would be, Ethan, why are you on your computer? It would be 2.5, comma 0, 5 over 2, comma 0. I'm cool with that. Do y'all know how to graph it? Well, then you better study. If there's no way you're going to remember how to do all of it, then you better be studying for this test. Your y-intercept is at positive 10. Let's put that up there. Your x-intercept, 2.5. How do you get to 2.5? What's 2.5 between? 2 and 3. 2.5. Draw your line. Okay? You're going to have to do that on the test. It's on the review. If you don't have a review, I'm going to pass one out to you in a second. But look at your test review. It is, who needs
For
one?
2.5, you just divided the top by the bottom.
Yeah, top, and that will always get you to a decimal. Okay? Okay, on a test review, look, it's broken down. The front is all slope. 1 through 6 is all slope. 7 through 12 is all x and y intercepts. And then 13 through 18 is all real world stuff. I know there seems like a lot, but these real world, they're just big pictures, so they just take a little bit longer. So there is an answer key to this on Canvas, and you can work on it. I do want y'all to do this check for understanding real quick. Just as a little, let's make sure we're good. So go back to Canvas, click on that CFU. And we're going to do that now. When you finish that, test review. Remember, some of the other check for understandings, y'all missed stuff because you didn't write it as ordered pairs. Or you might have done number, comma, number, but you didn't put it in parentheses. Put parentheses, put the 0 in the right place. This is what we're doing. And then we're test reviewing until the end of class. Okay?
I figured out with this Canvas.